Hello and welcome to the Full-Time Creator Podcast, where you'll get wisdom, tips, and inspiration from creators building their dream businesses. I'm your host, Zach Swinehart, and today I'm talking with Brice Gump from majorimpactmedia.com. Brice is a digital marketing strategist who helps course creators sell more of their digital products online through funnel optimization, email marketing, and digital marketing. In the 10 years that he's been in business, they've driven over $8.4 million in sales for their clients and have worked with creators from the six-figure mark all the way up to the eight-figure mark. And he has a really cool business model these days where he partners with clients and helps develop new offers. And it's going to tie really nicely in with the topic for today. So I'm really excited to chat about this. So I would say the cool hook for you, the listener, is we are going to talk about what Brice believes is the biggest low-hanging funnel fruit for most course creators. And if you're looking to augment your funnel, especially with a lower ticket offer, we're going to then dive in to what he calls and what people call self-liquidating offers. But it sounds like self-liquidating offers aren't always quite as sexy as they seem. So I guess let's just dive in because that's a lot of jargon. So I guess first, Brice, hello. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So maybe first you can just tell us what is a self-liquidating offer and what's the kind of wrong, false expectation people have about them.
Definitely. So self-liquidating offer is typically when we build and launch a funnel that is a low priced kind of impulsive purchase that we are trying to sell through paid ads. So for example, selling little $27 template packets or mini courses or books through a funnel on paid ads. And the reason they call it self-liquidating is the whole goal is if we can figure out how can we spend $500 today and generate $500 in sales by the end of today so that we are basically break even on our ad spend. But at the end of that ad spend, we've, got $500 in sales and 6 new customers. And those 6 new customers are now on our email list. They've pulled out their credit card to join, and now we can ascend them into our other products. So that's a self-liquidating offer in a nutshell. And what we were talking about right before this recording started was most people think they're going to launch some low ticket course. They're going to start running ads. They're going to make a bunch of money. It's going to be great. And my experience has been, usually you put together one of these funnels and then you fight for a few months with it to really try to get it to actually convert and actually make money. You usually end up losing quite a bit of money along the process, and then you make it all back up in the end. So that's what we can talk about today is just kind of that process and what we've gone through with a few of these funnels that we've launched.
Awesome. And I'm really excited about this. It was funny. So for those of you who listen, I heard of Brice because earlier full-time creator guest Jacques Hopkins has a podcast, and I heard Brice's interview on Jacques' podcast. And it was really funny listening to that interview because you could tell Jacques is an organic traffic guy. Just the way he asked his questions, he was anti-paid ads with all the questions. It was really funny to me. But I would say I'm on the other side of the spectrum. And I had Zach Spuckler on a few episodes ago. I really liked his approach to Facebook ads and stuff. So to me, the idea of being able to have a paid ads funnel where I can just acquire customers at cost immediately or, within a week or something like that is very, very exciting to me because of the control. But then I have the secret fear that keeps me up at night that I will, for example, get banned from Facebook advertising and then lose all of the ability to do that. So there's this it's control, but control with permission from one gigantic corporation who doesn't care about you, who might just indiscriminately ban you and stuff. So I don't know what sequence makes sense to ask you things, but I guess I'm kind of curious from this traffic standpoint. You mentioned that you've had some challenges with platform bans from getting hacked and things like that. Do you still feel after those challenges that you still feel the control over traffic and revenue from paid, even despite that, is a really cool advantage? Or does it make you be hedge with organic after that experience?
Yeah. So a little bit of context. Another thing we were talking about was I went through the experience of someone on my team had their Facebook account hacked a few months ago. And they were an admin on my business manager. So we lost our entire business manager. And as you know, there's no one to talk to at Facebook. So Facebook's response was like, okay, everybody in the business manager is now banned from advertising. We can't help you. And, good luck with everything you do. So we lost all our, like, a lot of ad accounts, a lot of pixels, all our pages. We had to start a bunch of stuff over from scratch. It's been a big headache. Even after all of that, the reality is, like, I think you have to do both, is just kind of it. And depending on your skills and your resources and where you're starting and all of that stuff with your business and where you're at, organic is great. It just takes a really long time, like, unless you are just, I don't know, unless you're some kind of ninja social hacking and doing all this organic stuff, the reality is, like, you can run ads. It takes you it takes a while to find the right ad. But once you find the right ad, I mean, you can spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to go out and acquire customers. You don't have to get up and create content every day.
Yeah.
You're not constantly coming up with new ideas. You can focus on other parts of your business while your ads are just constantly running. So ads are still an amazing way to get customers. It's just, you really have to kind of figure out how to hedge a lot of your bets, because you could lose a platform. Things can go down. It's like, so you don't want to be dependent on one thing ever,
Yeah, makes sense. And I think you spoke to it well. Like, that's the appeal to me of ads, is finding something that works and being able to scale it. I think where I always struggle with content is that it's kind of thing where you just have to kind of create in a vacuum for so long and so consistently with no traction and no results. And sometimes feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall a little bit, and then just hopefully something works. Versus like a pretty linear relationship with ads. You spend the money, you see the metrics, kind of what worked. You don't rely on compounding necessarily so much. So that's kind of where the self-liquidating offer funnel, look to take it offer funnels come in. But something interesting you were saying in the pre-interview is that when you were first starting, you were quite keen when working with new client to launch these, and then it sounds like you pivoted because it wasn't the most efficient first step or whatever. So can you maybe speak to that backstory a little bit?
For sure. So about a little over a year ago, we kind of changed our business model, where we went from running ads, kind of like an agency retainer, bring us whatever you have and we'll run your ads for you, to we started partnering with companies and being like, hey, we think you have, some really cool knowledge, and we want to help you grow your business. Let's partner up together and we'll do way more work, and then we take a rev share at what we do. So once we started going that direction, our original strategy was like, hey, we really want to work with this company. We'll build a funnel, launch a cold traffic funnel, self-liquidating offer, and run things that way. And what we found was, when you can get these things to work, it's really sexy, but they can be very challenging to get actually converting, because you kind of have to, like, crack an offer, in the sense that it takes time to, like, figure out what are the ads going to work, what is the right sales page that's going to work, what is the pricing that's going to work, how do you maximize the right upsells and order bumps to make the average order value be higher than your cost per acquisition. All of these things can take months of testing, which means you're spending money on ads that are not breaking even, which means you're losing money. So, I think at one point we were down like $5,000 in the negative on this one funnel that we were trying to get going before we were able to bring it back up. And so what we started doing was like, okay, now if we want to go into a business and help them grow using funnels and advertising and email and all the stuff that we're doing, how can we come in, look at what they're already doing, and figure out where's an opportunity where we can maximize some of this stuff to do like a little internal launch. Maybe we reposition the offer. Maybe we figure out how to do like a one-time sale, maximize the audience that they have and the email list that they have to generate some revenue, get some cash coming in. And then that cash becomes what we use to fund this self-liquidating offer. Because, I think on the last one we did, I think we probably spent like close to 4 months testing ads, VSLs, sales pages, order forms, all kinds of stuff to try to get this offer to be break even. And so that took a lot of work, that took a lot of energy, and it took a lot of ad spend. So now kind of looking at like, how can we get cash and then have the mentality that like, cool, once we get this up, we have to work for this. It's not like we come up with it, launch it, and all of a sudden we're making money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I think I heard in your other interview that 4-hour work week was an early inspiration for you, and it was for me and probably all of us. back in the day. But I remember like I would hear people talking like using Tim Ferriss lingo in like, I don't know, 2020, like using the word muse and like paid AdSense. Like that was the thing is I think I read the book when those Wild West days of Google ads, just pennies per click, just indiscriminately send them, like those days are gone. And getting any kind of quick ROI from paid these days is so competitive. And that's why you have to be so good is the vibe I'm getting. And that's where the 4 months comes from, presumably, is just natively high ad costs.
Yeah. I think ad cost plays a role in it. The technology's changed a lot, and I think people have changed a lot, to be honest. So, yeah, I started running Facebook ads in like 2014, where it was just like super cheap traffic. You could pretty much throw up anything, and people were like, "Wow, what's this?" And they would click on it and they would engage. I think one of the biggest campaigns we ever ran was like we had a webinar that was doing like $250,000 or $300,000 a month, because it was just like we ran the webinar, everyone would click, and then everyone would show up, and then everyone would buy. It was amazing. But now it's like people have seen all that stuff. People are like way more skeptical. If you have any experience online, you know what all this stuff is. So I think people are more skeptical. I think ad costs are up, but even it's like if you kind of look at the numbers, it's like ad costs are about to go up. It's Q4, but it's like a few months ago, ad costs weren't like, it's not like they've doubled in the last couple of years, but it's just conversion rates for most of what we've seen is down, because I think it's the people that have changed a lot on the platform.
That makes sense. I was talking to my friend Bobby from Millennial Money Man the other day, and he has been running paid for a lot of years. I think about as long as you, maybe a little longer. And when I was telling him about, oh, hey, I just learned about this thing called a self-liquidating offer funnel, he was saying he's been hearing like chatter that they're doing well, but he thinks of them as like old school, because apparently self-liquidating offer funnels were like a big deal, like probably around 2014, 2015, and then it moved towards webinars, moving back. Is this your second time through on this like kind of hype of self-liquidating offer? Or is this your first time to the space?
I ran the first one probably like three or 4 years ago for the first time, but they're not a new thing. They've been around for a long time. I actually remember like when I first got started doing all this, I was like a big digitalmarketer.com guy. I would go through all Ryan Dice's and Perry Belcher's stuff. Back when like Molly Pittman was running all their paid ad programs and stuff. But like I'll always remember, because their big thing was like a lead magnet, give away a free lead magnet, and then you have the tripwire on the other end, like the low ticket impulsive purchase, and then you sell them your stuff. And another big marketer, Todd Brown, was running a huge campaign at the time called the lead magnet lie or something like that. And he did extremely well. And his whole thing was like, you don't need to give away anything for free. Just run a self-liquidating offer, get people to pull out their credit card and pay to join the list. And like, that's a better thing to do. So I think it's always been around. I think part of what it is like, my take at it is kind of the evolution of what a lot of things have happened, where it's like, we kind of went through this phase where like webinars went really well. People would show up. It was like again, it wasn't a new thing, but it was like new enough to the Facebook, Instagram ecosystem that people would really engage with them. And now it still works, but I think less, especially depending on what market you're in. And so the appeal to be able to like spend money now and break even on that money, in a relatively short period of time versus like, hey, I'm going to spend $5,000 promoting this webinar and maybe I'll get sales, maybe I won't, I don't know, has just become more appealing.
It sounds like it's maybe one of those cyclical kinds of things. Like you're saying, like people change. It might be like a market awareness thing. Like, everyone's doing webinars. Now everyone knows the deal with webinars. And then now everyone moves to low ticket offers. And to me, it seems that's the thing that's a little bit of the confusing part, is it seems like the low ticket offer strategy, like buying something cheap, getting introduced to the brand, buying something more expensive, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem to me inherently like people would fatigue of that and that it would become air quotes less effective. But maybe if people don't do it very well and the low ticket offer like really sucks, maybe people start to associate low ticket offers with sucky things. Like, what do you think will be the death of the low ticket offer self-liquidating funnel, if anything?
Yeah, I like you said, I think it's one of those things that's been around since like before the internet, so like the idea of selling somebody something that's inexpensive and then ascending them into other things has been around since like direct mail or, before. So I don't think that's going to go away. I think what makes it challenging is, like if you want something to work, it has to satisfy a lot of criteria. Like it needs to have a big benefit for somebody, and it needs to be unique in some way that they haven't seen before. And it's like, that's where the real hard part is. And it needs to like align into ascending the right person into the next offer, so you kind of have to work your way backwards. So like just with those criteria alone, there's a few things you can hit that like make it not work for you. Like if you're not differentiated enough, you're not going to sell enough. If it doesn't align properly with your back end, they're not going to ascend. And then you're going to spend a bunch of money on customers that don't buy your stuff. And then you don't make money on the back end, which is where all the money is made anyway. So it's like, there's just, quite a few challenging things you have to get right to make it work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been logging a bunch of questions that I want to dive into now, but we got to talk about the first thing first. So I'll circle back to some of these. So you said originally you were launching these, people would go 4 months, 5K down, which by the way, do we have a happy ending for that one where it was 5,000 down? You said you brought it back up. Where did it end up?
We got it to break even. The Facebook account shutdown put a roadblock on that one, but we were able to get it break even and run that for a while before it went down.
Nice. And do you measure your, because obviously getting a break even on the front end for leads is great, but I assume you're also measuring the 60-day low ticket offer customer value and stuff like that. Like what's your typical gravy profit per customer within a month or two or whatever you track?
That one is, it's really just the big thing we track is like how many sales are we driving on the back end that are converting. So we did a cohort launch with that group of customers, and I think we did like 40 or 45,000 in sales. So it was like we paid nothing to get, nothing, quote unquote. We broke even on the front end to build a list, and then like launched a group coaching cohort off the back of that. And like that was where all the money was made.
How many customers was that? How many low ticket offer customers was that?
We were selling a 7K program. So, we sold 7 of that, like 42,000 worth.
But from how many self-liquidating offer customers? Like what was the list size basically is what I'm asking.
It was about 300, I want to say.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
In terms of value per, I would want to call it subscriber, but value per low ticket customer buying a new thing, whatever the short version of that is, that seems great.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's backtrack a step then. So you said that before you do this, you like to optimize and get the low hanging fruit stuff. Have you noticed a trend that it's usually, so like I do a lot of top of funnel optimization, like opt-in form kind of stuff. And I noticed that there are usually just couple of low-hanging fruit opportunities like every course creator misses. It's an easy way to go, and it's a gigantic lever to pull. With regards to you generating a bunch of cash to fund the low ticket offer, what do you notice is the biggest, easiest levers of just running a new launch? Is it a certain type of launch? Is it, I think I teed it up.
Yeah, I think it usually sits in their email list. I think most businesses that I talk to are not utilizing their email list properly. And so it's usually something along the lines of, hey, I've got an email list of like 10,000 people and we send them like 1 email a month, and so usually with that alone, we can come in and like find some ways to generate some revenue. The other one is just like doing little launches, same with the email list, but it's like, okay, you've been making the exact same offer for the exact same program subtly for a while. Can we, put some time bonuses on it? So it's like, hey, now we're going to run a little launch. And if you sign up during this week, we're going to give you these extra things, and there's an incentive to move forward with some urgency. And we're going to send multiple emails that are going to try to get you to buy, and like, usually that's I would say most people are not doing that.
It raises an interesting tangential question. I was talking to somebody, I don't even remember who now, yesterday, but they were expressing concerns over list fatigue. Like, my list has seen the same course on offer in launch format so many times now. in your mind, if someone's hitting that, do you think it makes the most sense to try to fundamentally change the offer, like create a whole new course, for example, or to bundle something like coaching, or to bundle something like licensing somebody else's course, running a workshop, something like that? Because obviously this is a spectrum of like difficulty
Hmm.
versus novelty. Where do you lie on the spectrum?
Um, I think it's tough to give like a specific answer for it. I th- from what I've seen, I remember I remember many years ago I was on the like, hey, just have one product and just sell a ton of it, because I just didn't really know, didn't know any better. But now that I've been doing this for long enough, I realize like, oh man, the biggest businesses have multiple products, and like multiple offers at multiple price points. And so if you do just have a $2,000 course or a $1,500 course that you just want to sell for forever, and you're like, this is my baby, and this is all I want to sell, I think you're going to make your life challenging in the long run, because it's just like, cool, you're not meeting customers where they're at if they want something less or if they want something more, and so that is that is a challenge. And so I do think having multiple offers at multiple price points works really well, just because the companies that I've seen that do a great job, you really get inside their business and you're like, oh man, these guys have like 7, 8 products that they're just churning through, because if you're an information based product business, like having multiple products to sell is very valuable. That said, if you're like, hey man, I've made this offer to the same people a few times, and I think people have seen this version of it, like we've had some success just doing like a, hey, yeah, special edition. It's that, but for these people, and you get these special bonuses with it this time. And that's worked for us too. So kind of depends on like where you're at, and what resources you have, and these sorts of things. But I do think long run, it's like good to have multiple products for sure. But then you can also position each product a different way.
With those special edition bonuses, were they like workshops or entirely new like course? Like I'm just trying to gauge the time commitment level for the creator to create those.
Usually it was like bonuses. So it was like, you're going to get this, but we're positioning it as this specific outcome for these people. And you're going to get these extra bonuses that are going to help you get that outcome that you want. And so like the core product itself hasn't changed at all, but like what's coming along with it is what changes.
But were the bonuses like live workshops or were they just like PDFs or like what were the
Could be live
bonuses?
workshops, one-on-one calls, extra PDFs, or like little mini trainings that go along with it. Sometimes we've had success just like calling out things that are already in there. Like I don't know how often you do this, but we'll survey people and be like, what do you want? And they'd send us a list of things that are already inside the program, and we're like, okay, next promotion, we're going to call these out some more.
Mm, that's a nice gem right there for sure. So let's say that you're working with a client. You go in and they do just have this $1,500 course, but they don't maybe promote it as often as they could. I assume that before you try to create a lower ticket product or a higher ticket product or anything, you're going to do your like low hanging fruit email stuff first. So you mentioned that one opportunity you see is the one email a month thing. Another one is like sending a proper launch. So if someone's doing, I don't know, 2 launches a year, 3 launches a year, 1 email a month, and it's been a while, let's say it's been over a quarter since the last launch, would your first step be to simply up their email frequency, or would it be to like run a new launch ASAP? What would you do from there?
So based on that, it sounds like the assumption is like this is like a closed door type of thing, where it's like it's not available all the time. So usually what we do in that situation is like look at a few places. So one, what is the automation from where most people are coming in? Like, is there a way to optimize and improve that? Kind of going back to like low hanging fruit. It's like a lot of times you get into these businesses and someone opts in for something and they have like 3 emails set up, and like that's the whole autoresponder. So we look at the autoresponder, we increase the frequency, and then we try to start doing some kind of timed promotional launch, whether that's like every quarter or whatever that is, and just get a system in place so that like emails are going out every week, the autoresponder is optimized and working, and then like there's a launch getting planned.
So the thing I think is interesting there is that you still prioritize the stuff that's not directly immediately attached to revenue first. So like honing the welcome sequence in this instance where they don't have an evergreen course, that's not going to push revenue because they don't have anything to sell. Weekly emails, not going to push revenue, building the relationships. So I think that's cool. And I think that might be counterintuitive for some people. So maybe you could share why you do it in that order versus like spitting out a launch ASAP and then later polishing that up.
So yeah, if you're doing like a timed thing, I think the biggest goal is like, how can you develop as a really strong relationship with people so that you're like building up that value so that when the launch comes, they're ready to move forward. And so that would be the focus there. But a lot of the companies that we work with like have evergreen products. So we're also like, okay, if we're selling an evergreen, it's like, how do we make sure that welcome sequence drives people to the thing they need to do, whether that's like book a call with the sales team or whatever that is. And if that doesn't work, how are we going to keep nurturing people until they're ready to move forward? So like company that we're working with right now, their stuff is evergreen. So it's like welcome sequence optimized for booking a call. The nurture is giving value and optimizing for booking a call. And then the launches are like, what is the special thing we're going to do to try to get all of the people who are on the list but are being a little bit stubborn to move forward because they're looking for that opportunity to like move forward now.
And if you were working with somebody who didn't have anything at all evergreen, they only had this one product, I'm asking these to kind of paint it for different listeners. If they only had this one cohort-based product that they open and close for, would you still optimize the welcome sequence first, knowing that it's not going to be attached to dollars immediately?
Depending on when the next launch is, like if they've already got a schedule in their head for like, this is when we're doing the next launch, it's like, okay, well, what can we get done between now and then? Okay. So I would prioritize making sure the launch goes really well. But if we're looking at emails, presumably we have time to like increase everything else going up into that. And so wanting to make sure that we create the right experience so that it's not like, hey, they opted in for this thing, they got 3 emails, they heard from this person one time, and then there's big launch happen. It's like, okay, well, how do we get in their inbox every single week and get them going like, oh, I'm in. I want to be hearing from these people. I want to be knowing what they're up to. I want to be learning from these guys, and I'm excited to like see what they have when it's ready.
Yeah. Would you rather see a course creator send 1 weekly email or 2 weekly emails that are like 1 comprehensive weekly email with like a big idea, a lot of context, or 2 that are shorter and more like bite-sized?
I'm a big fan of short bite-sized emails. Like that's my personal preference. I think everyone kind of has their own thing that works for them, but it's like I write a lot of emails and I wouldn't consider myself like some expert copywriter, but it's just like if each email is like a valuable little nugget or idea, you can just get people to keep reading. And I think that's personally when I look at like the emails that I follow and that I open and that I read, those are always the ones. Because I would much rather know that I have this like nice little nugget of information from this guy that I like versus like, oh man, here's that weekly 3,000 word newsletter with like 6 different pieces of information that I need to consume. And I think those are harder to put together. Like I think you need to have a research process, you're scouring ideas, you're putting all these roundups to like be able to send this one big newsletter every week where it's like, or I just like, hey, I got 3 ideas this week, 3 quick little, couple 100-word emails. And like, now I'm staying top of mind.
Cool. Yeah, I have a few newsletters that I'm on where it's an interesting thing thinking of this as a marketer, because like when I send value emails, I think of it as like there's this equation of like how much do I like Zach versus how much does Zach just always try to sell me shit. And each time I send a valuable one, it like tips it this way. And it's interesting because I'm on a few newsletters where it's like I never read them because they feel too hard because they're always too long. But nonetheless, I still believe they're valuable. So like I like that I get them, but I don't actually get the value because I never end up reading them. It's interesting to think about this. So yeah, so you'd, in your mind, if you could parse this long ass email into like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you think that's cool. You'd do that.
That's what I would do personally, because that's what we do, like we don't put together these like big newsletter stuffs. We just send like every email is one idea, and like, how do we make that idea interesting and relatable and tie it back into what we're selling and just add value and sell stuff.
Nice. So at risk of getting on a tangent, and I have my notes down, so I will pull myself back, but I know that one of the things you guys run are these high ticket, like call based funnels. And we won't really cover that a lot today, but I do have a couple quick takes I'd like from you if
Mhm.
it's cool. So one of them is, in your mind, what do you think the minimum product price? Let's say someone's selling their $1,500 course and it's like
Mhm.
just a course with cohort based, like weekly calls for the 3 months or whatever. What do you think the minimum price is for that product for it to be worth it? And then maybe if there's a different price, if someone doesn't have a sales team, it's just like straight up them. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe first one, like, what do you think the minimum price is to make it even worth it to do a sales call versus just a sales page?
Um, I would do your math and like on a spreadsheet and figure out what you think it's going to be. And also like, it depends on like how much time you have available, how much free time do you have? Because if you're so busy, you can't handle anything, probably jumping on sales calls isn't great. But if you're like hurting for money, not hurting, but like if you don't have a bunch of money coming in, jumping on sales calls is a great way to like one, sell and two, learn and have conversations with people. But I would say like most of the stuff, anything we're selling through a sales call is like 3K or above.
And do you have like with your clients and stuff, do you have a benchmark of what a typical close rate is? I assume it's a one call to close versus like multiple calls. So correct me if it's different.
In
But
most cases.
so with a single call that the objective is to close the sale, do you have a benchmark of what you're seeing for close rates? I guess it depends on the price point, but
Yeah, target like 20-25%.
cool. So if someone did do their real estate course, that's like, I'm just thinking my client with real estate course.
Yep.
$1,500 course, they do sales calls, they're closing 15%. That's probably a red flag. If they're in the 20-25, could be okay.
Yeah, if they're closing 15%, like there's maybe some optimization that can happen there, because yeah, whether that's like how are people showing up to the call? Are they pre-famed? Do they have enough information? Whether that's like the follow-up. I'm a big believer, like, a lot of our clients do one call close, but like most people aren't gonna. A lot of people don't show up on the phone and just pay, $3,000-$5,000 on that call. Like you have to follow up too. And so, like having good follow up, having a good sales script and all of that stuff, a good sales, being able to handle objections. And then, like we look a lot like how do we pre-frame people? So we run a lot of like VSLs, video sales letters. And one of the questions we ask people is, did you watch the VSL? Most people don't. So it's like when someone selects that, how do we get a hold of them and make sure that they have all the information that they need to show up to the call prepared? Otherwise it's like, it's just harder for us. So it's like, cool, can we send them the VSL? And if they say, I didn't watch it, can we send them a Google Doc with all the same information? Say, read this, and like think about it that way.
Do you have a rough agenda of like how you think sales calls for course creators like should be structured?
As far as like a script,
yeah, or like the bullet points of how to flow through it, or if you have a piece of content where you go through your typical sales call funnel and stuff, you can point us to that, and we can just flag that. The listener can go check that out.
I do have a YouTube video I can send you where I actually like break down the funnel that we use, and where I see like the biggest impacts come from when we're optimizing these things. I don't have any piece on the actual sales script, but again, this is kind of like my own philosophy on things, and everybody's different. Like I've been through some of the like closer programs where it's like really hard sell people, like once they get on the phone, they have 7 days to buy. If they don't buy, you close the doors, like it's not available to them anymore. All of that stuff. That's not kind of how I like to do things. So I try to figure out like, how can we do all of the marketing up front so that by the time they get on the call, they have all the information they need and like they're reaching out to us because they're ready to move forward. And we're trying to nudge them with emails and content, and like we want to convince them to work with us, but like we're not trying to like show anybody up and hard sell them. So a lot of that sales conversations becomes like digging into why did they show up to the call? What are the problems that they're having? How are those problems creating issues in their lives? I mean, people buy to solve problems. So it's really trying to figure out like, what are those problems that they have and do we think we can solve them? And then once we figure that out, it's like, okay, then I want to sell them on the new plan. Like, what's the plan that we would give these people if we were going to work with them? I think it's really important. Like, don't sell them on the program, because no one really wants another program or a course or anything. They want like an outcome. So sell them on the plan and the outcome. And then if they can agree to all of that, then you can say, okay, cool. Well, if that's what you would agree to, we have this program that would help you implement that plan. That's kind of the same thing, I used to do with our agency services and all kinds of stuff,
Yeah, I think that's a great sales model. Love it.
I'll tell you, if you want to figure out the best one, I actually think I have it right here. Where is it? Yeah. This is probably like the best sales book that I've found. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar.
Okay.
It's fantastic. So I think if you read that book and like implement it, that'll help you deal with most sales conversations.
Awesome. All right. So Brice just went out and made a playlist on YouTube of his different funnels and breakdowns. So if you want to check that out, it'll be at majorimpactmedia.com/creator bonus. Just one word, lowercase.
Yep.
So now we don't have to spiral into this whole new thread. You can just check that out there.
I've got whole little breakdowns for you. You can see the exact funnels we're running and everything.
Nice. So then to circle back a little bit. So let's say again, email low-hanging fruit stuff. When you are putting together like an email promotion for somebody, do you have a certain like launch sequence that you like to use if you're just trying to generate some cash for a client? Maybe not the same only one $1,500 product kind of person, just someone where you're going to just run launch, you're going to put some cash in the account and then set up the self-liquidating offer funnel. Kind of
yeah.
launch.
I mean, usually it's like really trying to figure out what's the offer going to be? How are we going to make this unique, different, better, more special? What are the incentives to move forward now that are, they're not going to have available later? And then we just send an email every single day, and each email is, again, same kind of style we were talking about, one unique, interesting idea, and then make an offer, And so that way, some of the emails are super direct sales pitches, some of our emails are like, hey, buy this thing, whatever. But then a lot of them, they're just ideas, like here's mistakes other people are making. Don't make that mistake. Make sure you click here and find our stuff to do it the right way. Or here's a question we just got about this. So here's the question we got. Here's the answer to that question. Here's the next step, call to action. Here's, the day in the life of a successful user, or one of our client students success stories, or something like that. If you want to do the same thing, click here and go do this thing. So trying to find like interesting and entertaining ways to get them to keep wanting to open our emails, and then take the next step.
Do you have a specific like pre-launch launch structure, like email themes almost that you like to do, or does it vary?
I would say it varies. I think I've seen what you're talking about, where it's like email 1, build the hype, email 2, get the logic, email 3, the gain, email 4, the fear, then the scarcity, then the urgency, all that stuff. We kind of use that. We also just send emails, it's like, I don't want any email to be the same. I want to make sure we have a balance of like, people either motivated to get away from a pain or into a pleasure. So it's like, we have a good balance between these things. We have good sales messages, but it's also kind of like, like what ideas do we have? Come up with, 15 and be like, what are the best 7? Let's go with those.
And what sort of like cart open to close window do you usually like to run?
Depends. If we're doing high ticket stuff and someone has to be on the phone, we usually do 7 days, because that gives plenty of time to, get motivated, book a call, have a call. So that would be it. We've done like, as little as like 3 or 4 days, but 3 or 4 to 7. 7's kind of long, but if people have to book a phone call and stuff, we'll do 7 days on the phone call. And then also, like let them know like, hey, if you book your call by the end of this day, we'll honor this thing.
And then the last little launch tactic question before we go on to the self-liquidating offer stuff. When you run these sorts of launches, do you tend to lean toward having the urgency through a discount, or like supposing someone's not doing doors open and close, supposing it's an evergreen product, would you be more inclined to have this urgency through a discount or through like a bundle that's only available this week?
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of doing discounts on info product stuff. So we've definitely, it's not that we've never done them, but I would much rather try to add things to the program to make it more valuable, and have those be on a timer than discount the value of the product. Because what we've seen is the best launches we run every year are the price is going up. Do you want to get in at this final price? And so every year, what we're essentially doing is like, we launched the program for the very first time. It's $3K. Next year, it's 4. Next year, it's 5. The next year, it's 7. And so as we've done that with the clients that we've worked with for a long time, like those are always your best promotions. And then to say like, okay, it's 7 now, but we're going to drop back down to 4, it's like, it can be kind of tough. But if we say like, hey, like we've now outsourced the coaching, we've got a coach that works inside the program, but if you join now, you get a one-on-one call with our founder. It's like, hey, that's a really big incentive to move forward. So we'll try to do stuff like that.
Makes sense. I've seen the same with price hike campaigns. And what I've wondered to myself, and I'd be interested in hearing your take, is if it would be less effective, is it's like, instead of saying we raise it by, let's say for each of these products, you raise it by $1,000 a year in that example. Suppose you launch them 3 times, or let's say 4 times a year, once a quarter. What I've been wondering is like, what if you raised it by $250 each quarter and every launch is a last time to get in at this price launch? I wonder if people would fatigue of that and it would lose its meaning.
I can't tell you because I haven't tested it, but I think it's a good idea. I think one of my favorite internet coaching companies is Peaceful Profits, Mike Shreve's company. Do you know Mike Shreve?
I've heard the name, but I don't know the company that was.
He runs a great company. And I think for all the reasons that like, they're just a really cool, authentic coaching company that does a really good job of selling without like the typical, like it's all the internet marketing, digital marketing principles you need without any of the like, makes you feel bad about it. But I think they'll just tell you like they raise their prices every 6 months and they're just like, that's it. Like that's what we do. We raise our prices every 6 months. So if you want to get in, you're more than welcome to join us whenever you would like. Know that the price will be more in 6 months. So.
And is that on like one-off or on a continuity pricing model?
They have like they have high ticket coaching, they have done for you, but particularly like their coaching programs is like what they're like, yeah, it goes up every 6 months. That's it.
Cool. Well, that's a nice model. Worth testing then.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's great context then. Cheers for that. So let's talk about now, at long last, self-liquidating offer funnels. So let's say you did this, you just generated 45K or 50K or 20K or 10K. Let's give it a more challenging one. Let's say you just did this and you generated only 10 grand. Is your next step to do a self-liquidating offer funnel, or do you want to push more? Like what do you have as your revenue threshold to pursue it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have like a revenue threshold. I think if we, one of our partners is a copywriter, so he'll put together a copy and build all the funnels. So it's not like we're spending, 15 grand on copy for one of these funnels, which you like easily could if you were trying to outsource the whole thing. So, as long as we have enough money to spend on ads, we're pretty good to like get things ramped up. So yeah.
So let's say somebody is pretty comfy writing copy. And so like they're the do everything yourself course creator. And this is going to be hard for you to make an estimate, but let's just say you were to. What do you reckon they should budget in terms of dollars for ads and time to create the offers, time to like, spend 1 million hours on Thrivecart making it actually work, time to write the launch campaign, time to even figure out how to do this stuff correctly? Let's pretend they kind of know, like they shouldn't have to spend too much time there. Hopefully they're okay at ads. Because if we're trying to factor in how long does it take to learn how to run paid ads? How long does it take to learn how to do all this stuff? But yeah, like if someone's pretty savvy marketer, but they want to go after this, what do you reckon time budget should be and dollar budget?
Yeah, I would expect to spend like $10,000 or $20,000 on ads. I wouldn't expect to lose $10,000 or $20,000. But again, like I said, I think the funnel that I can think of that we did most recently that comes to mind, so the numbers are fresher in my head. We spent 25 grand on ads and we were at one point minus 5,000 in the hole, on what we were doing. So it was like we were getting sales, just never enough sales. So I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation, is like you're going to spend 10 or 20 grand on ads. And you might go negative before you start breaking even. Time-wise, I mean, dozens of hours. I think from my experience, I've heard stories of people that launch these things and they just work, they're like, oh, hey, I got it right on the first try. That's just never been my experience, So you spend a lot of time really trying to make sure you come up with the right offer, having a sales page. Because we're doing self-liquidating offers, typically it's not just one offer. You've got a sales page, you've got an order bump, you've got an upsell, maybe you've got a downsell. So now you're writing like 3 sales pages, not just one. Email marketing, you have abandoned cart sequences, you have post-purchase upsell sequences. So it's like there's quite a bit of stuff. Your MVP doesn't necessarily need to have everything completely built out on that end, but it's like definitely a sales page, order bump, and an upsell. Where I have found that we have shot ourselves in the foot before we even got started is like just creating the wrong offer. So I think that's really worth doing a lot of exercise and like really figuring out, okay, is what I'm selling super attractive to the exact person that I want to attract? And like getting really, really, really clear on that. Because if you're trying to sell a 10-hour mini course to someone that doesn't have any time, like, you're already running into issues. If you're trying to sell, one place we went wrong, I created a low ticket offer for us one time, and we did like a Facebook ad creative training. So it was like, hey, how to write better Facebook ads. We wanted to attract business owners, and the only people that bought it were marketers. So it was like the offer was off. You know what I mean? And so that's where I think a lot of time and energy goes into. And then, yeah, the reality is like, you're going to spend tens of hours like writing this copy and then probably trying to optimize it too, because it's, kind of what it takes.
But dozens of hours, I wasn't sure if the answer would be hundreds. So it's still some good context. What do you think? So you mentioned you shot yourself in the foot creating the wrong offer. And obviously the bump and upsell are kind of many times like dependent on the offer itself. So like if you invest all that time, obviously like upsell, if it's coaching or whatever, easy. But the bump is usually just a little bit more of the low ticket offer from what I've seen. So my question for you is, how could you have avoided that situation you ran into with yourself, like this Facebook ad creative training? Like, what I'm wondering is like, is there an approach where maybe at first I don't even have a bumper upsell and I'm running straight to the low ticket offer just to validate that this is something people are interested in, expecting to lose money, but having like, if 1% converts, then I know it's worth pursuing. If it's less, it's not. Like, how would you approach the validating the right offer in the first place thing?
For sure. Yeah. I think that was one of the first low ticket offers I ever did. So if I was going back and doing it all over again, like you could just sell the low ticket offer and see if that works. I even, I know plenty of people who will just pre-sell. So that's what we actually did with our most recent offer. Was we just pre-sold it, and we just said like, hey, this is coming soon. We'll have it ready in a few weeks. By now, expected our conversion rates to be a little bit lower. But then we could see like, are we going to get initial traction with this thing before we actually go out and launch it? And we didn't have any issues with anybody, like no one was upset that the product wasn't ready. And we could see like how many people were buying and also who were the people that were buying. And that would give us kind of the idea of like, okay, do we want to pursue this? Because if things had gone really bad, we could have just refunded everybody and said like, oh, hey, sorry, like we're not, something went wrong. Here's your money back.
And were you running cold traffic to that, or were you running to a lead magnet and that was like the post lead magnet?
Cold traffic straight to a sales page.
Wow. So yeah, I'd like to dig into that more because that's a pretty cool model. So what was the low ticket offer you were running to?
It was like a little mini course.
Cool. Are you wanting to keep the topic secret?
It was just, it was related to like startup. It was offered to like startup founders, so we were trying to help them with a particular thing that they need help with in their business. And that was it.
And did you, since you were like pre-selling it, did you have a bump and an upsell, or you were just having it just solo pre-selling this offer?
We actually went and wrote out the sales page, the order bump, and the upsell page. And then we had on the thank you page, we just had a congratulations, book your 15-minute onboarding call and we'll just give you a quick little rundown. And that's kind of how we got a feel for like who were the people that were buying this thing as well.
So what were the price points for product bump upsell with that one?
$37.19 on the order bump, and then $97 on the upsell.
$37.19.97. And that thank you page with the form, like for the onboarding call, that was only if they took the upsell, or that was like anyone who bought even the fundamental offer?
Anyone who bought anything that made it to the final page.
Interesting.
Say, hey, yeah.
And so that was like, you wouldn't do that once it's validated. This was like a kind of like validation call.
Yeah. So we took that
That's
off
so clever.
after we ran it for like a month.
Wow. That's a cool model. So yeah, I mean, and tell me, like, I don't want you to feel like you're giving away all the secret sauce or something. So if there's ever something you're like, I don't want to show that one, just tell me, and I can even just cut it.
Yeah. No, I don't mind. I kind of generally try to avoid talking about like exactly what our offers in our businesses are doing.
Yeah, for sure.
For the client's sake, But
yeah,
other than that, I'm fine.
Cool. Then yeah, I'm wondering, like, for that form and the calls, what did those calls look like? Again, kind of like the loose agenda. Like, what was the strategic goal?
For us, it was trying to get a feel for like who were the people that were buying and where were they at. And for them, it was like, hey, we're going to give you a quick little rundown of like everything that's coming in the program, and you tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll tell you where to get started. Because if you're brand new, we'll tell you to start at the beginning, and if you have a little more experience, we'll tell you to jump in here.
And were they just like 15 or 20-minute calls or something like that?
Yeah, little short 15-minute calls.
Cool. So if I were to go out and do this, I've been playing with a low ticket offer funnel for my own services. So if I help people optimize their like top of funnel opt-ins, I was thinking that a nice mini course would be like just how to do it yourself, how to quickly create a high converting opt-in. So let's say I were testing that. What sorts of benchmarks would tell you that? Because I think where it gets a little bit tricky is deciding, is it the offer's fault or is it the sales page's fault that people aren't converting? Like, how would you make your decision? Number one, how would you make that decision? How would you decide that your sales page sucks versus that the offer sucks?
Yeah. So that's a really tricky question, actually. I think if your sales rates are terrible, it's probably your offer. If your heat maps are kind of showing you that no one's really scrolling down the page and everyone is just bouncing, like the main idea on your above the fold kind of area is just not very interesting. Because some of the best offers, like, someone tells you what they do in like 2 to 3 sentences, you're like, oh, that sounds cool. Or you're like, that's not, I don't know if that sounds like I've seen that before, So that kind of tell you, but like we kind of expect everything kind of goes based on what you really see once you like start running things. But like we have a little document that's like, if we write an ad, I expect that I'm probably going to spend like $100 or $200 testing this ad. Like I didn't write the ad for nothing. So assuming that the stats aren't terrible, like I'll probably spend a couple $100. If we write a sales page, like we're probably going to spend $1,000 on it. Like you just have to get eyeballs on it to see if it works. And then like, if that didn't work, but it seems like we're getting some traction, like all of our sales page have like a step 1 opt-in. So it's like, they opt in on the first page, we got their email, and then they go to the checkout page. So it's like, we're getting step 1 opt-ins, but we're not getting enough sales. Okay, well, like maybe we could tweak the sales page, and then you go through a couple iterations of that. So once you kind of look at it, the data will kind of tell you, but you kind of got to figure out where are people just stopping, like, are they stopping because they're not clicking on the ad? Are they stopping because they're not reading the sales page? Or are they stopping because they're not completing the checkout?
What would you aim for of the core offer take rate from cold traffic in terms of percentage?
I think it totally depends. Like if you're selling like
let's say the $37 mini course one as the example.
Yeah. So when we did our math based on the AOVs, the upsells, the market that we're in, talking with other people about what their CPAs are in similar markets and all of that stuff, we came to the conclusion that we pretty much need our conversion rates to be like 5 to 6%. But there's another offer that I've been seeing for a while that's like they're selling like a $10 how to draw course. Their numbers are going to be completely different, because like the AOV on that funnel is going to be completely different. The lifetime value on that kind of customer is going to be completely different. The conversion rates are probably going to be way higher. So it's like a lot of what we do is figure out, okay, kind of what market are we in, talk to some people, and then kind of like backwards our way into what that number needs to be. But, when I talk to a lot of people who are like in our type of market, so like business related stuff, make money online offers, these sorts of things. I mean, it's not uncommon at all for people to be paying $100, $140, $150 to acquire a customer. Like that's a pretty normal CPA, and I think kind of like the biz space.
And so if you were running like looking just at this, the mini course breakdown, for example, like $150, say, to acquire a customer, it would mean that every single person would have to like take the bump and upsell to liquidate on that one. I might be setting up wrong, but what I was going to ask is like, just if you're running cold traffic to a sales page, like to me, 5 to 6% for a $37 product from cold traffic, like that seems high, but maybe
it is high for sure. It's like, that's not an easy number to get to by any means. But I think we got to that number looking at, okay, like what's our current price points and AOVs and everything that we have going through the funnel. And then like, because I don't think you've really like stress tested a funnel until you're spending like, tens of thousands of dollars a month. So it's like, it's one thing if you're getting really good conversion rates and you're spending $4K a month, and like it's a totally different story if you're getting good conversion rates spending 30. So we came to that number being like, cool, if we can get this thing up to $1,000 a day, that's kind of the numbers we think we need to look for.
Interesting. So I know I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, so I'm just trying to think like what the step would be if somebody's thinking of launching one of these. Would you say that you would recommend this pre-sell validation thing first and try to hit a certain metric on a $37 product, or what would be like the first step dabbling test to take?
I think the first step is like really strategically deciding if this aligns with like the direction you want to go and what you want to be doing, because it just is a lot of work. Like that's been my experience at least. So I don't think there's like a, hey, let's like try this out and see if it works for a week or two, and then if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. That said though, like what has worked for us, we did that pre-sale offer. I know some other guys, Mike Shreves is one of the guys who talks about this a lot. They do like little like live workshops with their audience to see if they can validate an offer and see if that audience is really interested in what they're doing, and then take that to cold traffic. And there's definitely a big difference between like warm and cold. But if you have an audience of a certain type of person and that's the person you want to attract and they're interested in that type of offer, you can launch it warm to them and then take that to cold traffic. So that's a good way to do it. Otherwise, if you're just like brand new business, you got nothing, you're like day one and you're like, I'm going to start with a low ticket offer. Yeah. I mean, it's like, cool. Like get ready to write a few different sales pages, and I'd put pre-sale on all of them and launch them and see what takes. And I think it would be hard to see in a vacuum, like, hey, I launched this one, was this good or bad? But if you launch like 3 different angles, you'd probably quickly see like, oh man, this one did way better than the other ones. Now I think we have something. And yeah, my experience with the numbers has been like, it's always worked out differently for every business. So it's like, put it in a spreadsheet and work your way backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, like the important vibe, I guess, to communicate is that this, of all the episodes I've done, of all the strategies we've talked about here, this is like the most complicated one. And it's the one that requires so many different pieces of knowledge. So probably the actual thing somebody should do, if they have an expensive course they're thinking of adding a self-liquidating funnel, is probably just talk to you. Because as I understand it, you often partner with people and you will like own the whole launching of this thing, so that you guide the thing, you make the funnel profitable, you manage all this stuff so they can just keep creating the content and stuff. So looking at the time, classic Zach asked a million questions. So this seems like a nice time to talk about what that would look like. So if I have my $1,500 course and I'm thinking this sounds cool, but it also sounds complicated AF, and I want to work with Brice on this like partnership basis, like what should I do? What's the process look like there? How do you work with clients? That kind of thing.
Definitely. Yeah, so we kind of switched our model a while back ago to where like we now we just partner with people on these things. So we work with a very select number of people, but if someone has a really great business and like a really good high ticket program that they're selling, we'll come in and just like build out the entire front end and manage the entire thing, and then we do it all on a rev share basis. And so that's kind of the model that we're using right now. That's been working for us, but we're I'll be honest, we're really selective about who we bring on for that. But if somebody's really interested, a couple other things we do is like have a newsletter where I just share all the stuff that we're up to. I make a lot of YouTube videos about what we're doing, trying to like to share and share what's working for us. And then if it's not a good fit for us, like, I have some other resources too about that help people, like I didn't learn how to do all this on my own. Some other people showed me how to do it. So I have some really good resources that I can share too.
So for that newsletter, as I understand, it's called the Cash Flowing Creators newsletter. Where would I go to sign up for that?
Yep. So you can go to majorimpactmedia.com/newsletter, and that will take you to where you can opt in for the newsletter. And we've got case studies, stuff that we're doing every day, all kinds of stuff we send out there. And then I've got a YouTube channel that I make videos on and send those out to the newsletter as well.
And what would you say the like big transformation is for me after I've joined your newsletter and been on it for like a week?
I think the biggest thing that we share is like stuff that we're actually doing right now that's working. So I know if you spend a lot of time in kind of marketing, social media world, there's a lot of people who talk about like tactical ideas and, like share textbook stuff, but we actually just like share what we're doing with these companies and kind of what are the numbers and how it's working for us and where we got punched in the face along the way.
Awesome. And is there anything today on this whole thread of what we've been talking about that you wish I had asked that I didn't, or anything else you want to share before we go?
Good question. I guess I'll kind of finish with this one last piece of thing that, because I think this is a complicated strategy. And I was having this conversation with somebody else the other day. And so my experience with all of this stuff is like, I've never launched any of these funnels and they've just worked great. And that's it, So it's always been a process of like coming up with our best ideas, putting them out there. They don't work like we want them to. And then we just have to like grind our way out into making it work. But, we've, with a few of the funnels that we've done this with, like we've gotten them to pulling like multiple six figures. And we've even had like a 7-figure funnel that we cracked with just through like optimization and testing over time, So it was just like, that's just been my experience on this process. So I think if, that's what you want to do and like strategically decide that's what it is for your business, you just like, decide that you're going to do it, roll up your sleeves and get to work. And then, like after 100 hours, you too can have a converting funnel to paid ads,
100 hours, 4 months, maybe 5K. But it seems like the payoff is definitely worth it because it's a huge asset to have.
Yeah.
I thought of one quick take. You tied it up so nicely, but I have to ask the quick take. If someone's going to do it, do you think producty products, or like say someone's going to do a live workshop that's coming up? Like, do you think it ever works to have a low ticket funnel for an upcoming live thing that people get a recording of?
I mean, that's what we do with pre-sales, and that's what summits are, like all, there's all kinds of stuff that people do with that stuff. So I think from my experience, so much of it depends on who's your customer and what kind of reputation do you have in that market. Because if you have a big enough reputation, you could, like Tony Robbins can come out tomorrow and be like, hey, you guys, I'm doing a live event in 6 months. Do you want to buy a ticket today? And people will be like, oh yeah, for sure. And if I did that, people are like, oh, who are you? I'm not giving you my money right now. Give it to me when it's done, So it's like your market, your reputation, what you have to offer all plays a role in like strategically what you want to decide to do. But I think if you look around, there's so many ways to get to the end result that you want. So you just kind of figure out what works for you based on the resources you have and what you like doing.
Makes sense. Well, let's just pretend Brice got to end on that earlier note, the nice bow tie that this funnel's worth it, but now I get this little take. And thank you so much, Brice, for being here. majorimpactmedia.com/newsletter. I'll be signing up there myself. Join me, get all of his best wisdom. So, Brice, I'll hit stop, but we don't hang up because Riverside.
Cool.
But I'll pretend I'm saying goodbye. So, goodbye, Brice.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, listener. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
What a great interview, eh? I felt like he shared some really, really great tactical insights that helped see that these self-liquidating offer funnels maybe aren't as easy as we would all like /hope/want them to be, but still quite powerful. If you want to check out all of the links, transcript, etc., you can check those out in the show notes at ftcreator.com/episode 14. That's the word episode number 14. If you enjoyed this, I would appreciate a good review. And if you're on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, leave a comment with what you enjoyed. And other than that, appreciate you being here and see you in the next one.